Our next article is a petition electronic recording of Select Board executive questions. Mr. Reed. Hold on.
Okay, so my name is Brooks Reed. I live on Estabrook Road, and uh-oh, what did I do?
It'll show up.
All right. This article asks the citizens of Concord to urge their select board to electronically record its executive session, either audio record or audio-visual record executive sessions. I think some people may not be that familiar with the executive session or open meeting law, so I'm going to begin with a quick overview of open meeting law as it applies to executive sessions. Open meeting law, or OML for short, is the law which governs how meetings by public bodies are conducted in Massachusetts. The Attorney General's Open Meeting Law Guide is a plain language guide to the open meeting law. The Attorney General's introduction speaks to the transparency, that is, accurate and available information about your government's activities. This is a right for town citizens. One of the ways that transparency is maintained is by the requirement that minutes be taken for all minutes, including executive sessions. So, what are these executive sessions? Well, executive session is closed-door session. Closed-door sessions are allowed for certain very narrowly defined reasons. Do executive sessions have minutes? Yes, just like open session, minutes are taken. However, the minutes do not have to be released to the public promptly, as open session minutes must be released. So minutes taken in a meeting are in draft form until the committee meets at a later time to finalize and approve the minutes. The approved minutes are what remain in the public record. This finalization and approval process is not left to chance, but rather must occur in a timely manner. So what is a timely manner? Well, the open meeting law does not specify what a timely manner is, but the Attorney General's office, through the Open Meeting Law Guide, specifies that a timely manner means within about 6 weeks, that is, within the next 3 meetings of the Select Board, in the case of the Select Board. The Attorney General also frowns on any delay in meeting minute approval. It takes the process very seriously. So, for example, the Attorney General's office has made it clear that you can't generally argue that a staff shortage is a justifiable reason or cause of delay. So, as a citizen, how do you determine if executive session minutes have been approved? The only indication you have is to look through the open meeting minutes to find entries indicating approval of executive sessions. So I've shown here on the slide, you can see that there is an indication of an approval of an executive session. This is what you'd look for to find approvals. So I engaged in the exercise of determining which executive sessions have had their minutes approved over the time interval of 2016 through 2018. I did this by looking up all the executive sessions which were called by the Select Board as indicated by agendas, then checked the open meeting minutes to find which executive sessions had had their minutes finalized and approved. And what I found was rather shocking to me. At least 20 sessions had gone at least a year, and in some cases up to 4 years without having been approved. So this is obviously drastically more than the Attorney General's idea that 6 weeks is an appropriate amount of time. So why should we care about this? Well, Select Board members leave the board. New members do not know what constitutes accurate approved minutes for a meeting they did not attend if they're a new member of the board. And institutional forgetting of closed-door discussions occurs. What might be forgotten? Well, for example, the Select Board made a $1 million plus spending decision in executive sessions for which the meetings have still not been approved years later. And three of the five select board members have left the board, so it's unclear that you could really have accurate minutes of those meetings. The reasons underlying closed-door decisions can be lost. So, recording of executive sessions will mean that whether or not the select board finalizes and approves executive session minutes in a timely manner, we will still have an accurate record of their closed-door deliberations. And I want to give you an example of errors in executive sessions. So about 2 hours ago, our select board reviewed and approved executive session minutes for a meeting held less than 6 weeks ago. That is, the minutes were approved in a timely manner. I have a copy of the approval document here. It was handed out at the select board meeting just an hour or two ago. And the approval must list all the persons present at the meeting. So even though this meeting was held less than 6 weeks ago, or just 6 weeks ago, all the select board members have apparently forgotten that this meeting was attended by a woman who's not listed as an attendee. So here, I went to the video of the entry into executive session and pulled a screenshot, and you can see all the select board members and the town manager are listed as present in the approval of the minutes, but there's a woman here who's not listed. This, I believe, is Town Council Melissa Allison, and even after 6 weeks, the select board has forgotten who attended. So if we're waiting years before we approve minutes, I think we have to worry that they may not be accurate. So why record executive sessions? Well, anyway, I think that's the end, right? Nope, this is funny. I gave you the wrong. Yep. I gave you the wrong version of this, but anyway, I hope you'll approve this warrant article to make sure that executive sessions get recorded. To urge the select board to do so that even though there are multi-year delays before the minutes get approved, they still get, the information is not lost.
Thank you. Any questions, select board? Any questions? Seeing none, well.
Hello, Carlin Reed, 83 Wits End. I had a question about the wording of Article 5 or Article 45. It says to urge to the select board to audio record or audio visual record its executive sessions. By the phrase audio visual recording, are you suggesting that Minuteman Media Network be used using PEG funds to do the video recording, and if so, why?
Well, my goal is to have information retained, and if Minuteman Media Network was the way to do it, I think that if that made the most sense and was the easiest way, I think that would be the best way to do it.
If you are considering that, I would recommend that you appear before a PEG Access Committee to see whether it is a permissible use of PEG Access funds, which is generally designed for public access materials, not something that's generally not public access. So that's a recommendation I have.
So the wording requires that, the wording implies that the information is eventually released, not immediately. Are you saying that when PEG Access does it, the information has to be released immediately? It's not possible to retain it?
It does sound like you need to come before the committee and have a good discussion of that particular area. Second question I have is, the wording also suggests that the recordings be kept for at least 3 years. Can you explain about the 3-year time period? Because that's different from the current open meeting law requirements or the document retention rules.
Correct. So I believe the reading of the article says that the recordings would be released upon the release of the minutes, the printed minutes of the meeting. And I wanted to put in an amount of time for them to be retained, a minimum amount of time. And so I put in 3 years. It wouldn't necessarily have to be that. It could be moved for a different amount of time. But I thought I'd put out some minimum amount of time to retain the recording after the printed minutes were also released.
Thank you.
Ms. Grimwald.
Sarah Grimwood, 520 Lexington Road. The examples you gave of the select board recording the minutes incorrectly were from like 4 years ago, you said. More recently, have the select board been putting in their minutes in a more timely manner, or is it just as a few examples from several years ago that were late?
Well, I looked the entire period from 2016 through 2018, and I looked at that around December of last year. The idea being that I wanted to find a large group of minutes that were at least a year old, and I found 20 or more. And then more recently, I don't think there's been an increased rate of approval, but I didn't really check because those are more recent and they wouldn't have applied to the issue of late approval.
It might be more pertinent to understand what's been happening more recently, though.
I can add a little bit to Mr. Reed's. We really did have a very difficult time, and while there's no excuse for it, there was a lot of change in personnel and then a new town manager and records becoming hard to find. Since then, we've identified a new process for taking minutes. We have somebody in the room whose job is to take minutes and get the release. So I think if you looked at that data, you'd see that there was that period, as Mr. Reed is speaking of, 16 through 18 or so, where our record there is not very good. And tonight we approved a lot of executive session minutes to get us up almost totally current. There are no more questions. Next